t'aime, Bruxelles, je t'aime. Tu m'as fait manquer, Bruxelles, je t'aime, Bruxelles, je t'aime. T'es ma préférée, Bruxelles, je t'aime, Bruxelles, je t'aime.
Hello there, welcome to Bruxelles, je t'aime, Euronews' talk show all about the European capital of Brussels. On Brussels, my love, we pick apart some European stories, check what's at stake for you and for Europe. My name is Maeve McMahon. Thanks for joining us. Coming up this week, city life, with the EU's big ambitions to be carbon neutral by 2050 and the European Green Deal their main strategic and economic goal, we take a look at how cities and regions across Europe will adapt. With an energy crisis easing but still pinching, we're asking what it takes for a city to go green and what are the massive challenges along the way and how to fund this environmentally friendly future. The European Union has a massive budget for the next few years, billions of euros earmarked for the so-called green and digital transitions. Post-COVID funds are also still up for grabs, but we're asking if this money will really help cities across the continent, if national governments will pave the way for this, or whether more power should be given to cities and regions to embrace this transition. To talk about all this and much, much more, I'm joined here in our studio by Emil Boc, the Mayor of Cluj-Napoca, and you're also the former Prime Minister of Romania. Welcome.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
We're also joined by Kata Tuto, the Deputy Mayor of Budapest in Hungary.
Hello.
And Dan Boyle, EU Climate Pact Ambassador, Leader of the Greens in the City of Cork of Ireland.
Hello.
Welcome to you all and welcome to Brussels. Thanks for being with us. And before we hear your views, let's just get you up to speed on what the EU Green Deal will actually mean for cities. Christopher Pitchers reports.
The European Union wants to go green and is trying to do so by 2050 as it bids to be the world's first continent to go carbon neutral. It's called the EU's Green Deal, an array of policy initiatives covering everything from energy to transport and agriculture. For some, the target is not soon enough. For others, it's a happy medium between going too far too soon. Another major goal for Brussels is to reduce carbon emissions by 55% by 2030, a challenge that's being met at all levels throughout the continent. But with national EU governments scrambling to meet such urgent and drastic targets, where does this leave Europe's cities? The answer isn't so simple. Metropolitan areas already face a whole host of challenges, ranging from mobility to clean air to a lack of affordable housing. Climate change is only serving to amplify these problems. New and difficult challenges will inevitably surface as time goes on, and how European cities intend to go green is the million-dollar question.
Christopher Pitchers reporting there. I mean, there's going to be lots of paperwork coming out of this city in the next couple of months and years, and it's already coming. Are your cities ready for this?
Why not?
Why not? Bring it on.
I think we have to be, because the choice of not doing so means to just reinforce bad behaviour that brought us to this difficulty. So I think working collectively and using the resources in a better way is going to make city life better for all our citizens.
And this is why it's good that we're together. We have this movement of mayors who want to go green because their citizens want to go green, or if they don't, then we try to pull them with us. And it's good to have others who are maybe further on the way, who already entered the green door many years ago, have experiences, already have plans and see what works, what doesn't work, and how to engage the citizens. I think that part is quite challenging.
So you're in a minority, this coalition of mayors who came to Brussels this week because you're all on board.
I think first we have to discuss with our people, why do you need a green city? To explain exactly why, because after that we discuss how. Why? First, I would say that a green city is not a luxury. It is a necessity for a better job, for a better health, for a better quality of life for all Europeans. Second, a green city, it's a city that puts people and our future before the unlimited profit. We have to build up a city for the people first and not for the unlimited profits that I said before. And we as a mayors, we need to provide a vision, a plan, and to engage our citizens. If you have these three ingredients, then you need leadership. Sometimes to have a green city, we have to take unpopular measures. But for that, we have to have leadership and to assume it, because in the end, when they will see the results, people will be happy. Let's just give an example. You can avoid smoking, but you cannot avoid air pollution.
Well, just funny you mentioned that word smoking, because we were having a listen this week to the mobility minister here in Brussels, who's having a very tough time for the measures she's been trying to bring in here to push cars slightly outside the city. And she said this week that actually going green is similar to smoking. It's like giving up smoking. It's hard at the beginning, but we see the results after 6 months. The city can breathe again. And that's a message, Cara, that I guess can resonate with people.
This is why this is why I say it's good to see cities who already done that, who changed the way we use our public spaces, because the biggest public space we have in our cities are roads and parking places. And when you change this and you put there trees and you put there playgrounds, and you see that these roads are not dividing your citizens, but they are connected them. Yeah. And you see that politically you can survive taking away parking spaces, because you see other mayors who've been re-elected with changing their cities. It gives us strength, because yes, we ask a lot of things from our citizens: to put down their cars, try bicycles, walk in the city, use public transport, don't waste so much, change the way they look at food, recycling. It's sometimes overwhelming. It's overwhelming.
But sometimes the results are there. We remember as well during the pandemic, during COVID, a lot of cities started rolling out bicycle lanes, and spaces as well for people to sit outside, to have their coffee. These were temporary measures, but actually they're becoming permanent now.
We've shown that in a crisis we can act quickly, we can act well. In my own city, we pedestrianised 17 streets in our city centre, and we brought in several dozen kilometres of segregated cycleways, because the situation demanded to us. Change is difficult, and you will get a resistance to change. But the challenge for anyone in political life, public life, in cities throughout Europe, is to convince the citizens that it's about bringing us to a better place. And green cities are better places.
That's exactly the leadership, what I mentioned. You need strong leadership in order to implement it. I give an example from my city. When I took a street from the cars and organized in the city center a pedestrian area and with a lot of terrace, at the beginning people were mad. No, how are you going to do without this street? Now in the city center, having terrace, having a European way of life, they are proud of it. So in the end, it's good, but at the beginning you have to assume it. That's our job as a mayor. You have to do something we do not want for our popularity, but is needed for the city. That's important. For the city.
Well, look, we've heard from the politicians here, and now it's time to hear from people. We've had reporters from Euronews on the streets of Brussels and also on the streets of Budapest, asking people what they would like their authorities to do in order to make their cities cleaner and greener. Take a listen.
There's always more that you could do, I guess. One thing I would say as an expat, I know this is a hard thing to change, but I guess the trash pickup.
Community transport, you can do something about the price, and maybe for the facility, the parking around the city, because there are not a lot of parking around the city.
We can always work harder at improving the way we manage waste and recycling, a bit more safety for people cycling, but I see you've made some great improvements here, so I would say keep up the good work.
I think that Budapest is the dirtiest city in the country, possibly in the whole of Europe. First of all, the city government should be dismissed. Secondly, people should be educated from kindergarten not to litter.
I want pedestrianized streets and less cars.
It's all a chaos. The solution that we have here is terrible. We have to cross the bike lane and they just keep coming like crazy.
I would like to see more parks downtown instead of paving over everything.
Elliot Skilling's reporting there in Brussels, and Zoltan Sibelshegi in Budapest for us. And we saw really a glimpse, right, of the tensions that we can see in cities among motorists, cyclists and pedestrians, and also a lot of criticism towards your city. I don't know if that's fair, calling Budapest the dirtiest city in Europe. I mean, I visited there. It looked lovely.
Well, we spend a lot on getting the city cleaner, but of course, it can always be cleaner. And if you ask, I always say that how dirty a city is sometimes a perceptional issue. So if you read it in the news that this is a very dirty city, then you will feel that this is dirty. And it depends on which party are you voting for. There are strong tensions, but of course, you need to get, and I think waste is one of the hot topics. So like what we're used to is that we buy stuff and then we put it in the trash and somebody will take care of it. And now we want to change this on the European level, local level. We want people to say, okay, this is not waste. This is something you should be like using, reusing. There are materials that you won't have abundance of. So you need to think of what you're buying. Don't produce so much waste. Think about bio-waste, think about food waste. But it's, of course, it takes time.
Takes time. What about Cork City?
Well, I think we should never forget the purchasing power of city government, the ability to buy materials that are sustainable and less than necessary to be disposed of, to be an exemplar to your city and your citizens. Waste is one of the biggest triggers of greenhouse gases, so we have a responsibility to make sure that we don't accumulate things to throw away to create the greenhouse gases that is causing the climate change effect. So you stop things at the first possible opportunity. And city government is the opportunity of doing that. I like to think we try to do that to the best of our ability within our resources.
When I heard the citizens, I remember what Anna Karenina said in Lev Tolstoy book. There's a quote like this: all happy families are alike. All the unhappy families are completely different. So it's exactly how our cities. We have different cities with different problems, but we all want to be happy, to have a happy city, and a green city, it's a happy city in the end. And now, talking about my city, Cluj-Napoca, we have a range of policies, starting with promoting sustainable transportation, from metro system, which are trying to implement right now, to bike lines. Second, increase green spaces. Third, promote energy efficiency building. Fourth, reduce waste. And last but not least, education. It's so important. And now, it's important to use our kids in order to teach to their parents how to have recycle, how to protect the environment. It's the best way to make education with all the generation, using the kids from their experience in school and in the city.
And just very briefly on mobility, because obviously mobility is very emotional, especially in countries like Ireland or rural Hungary. How do you get people out of cars when they need their cars to get around, sometimes two cars outside their front door?
Yeah, well, we have a large rural population, and our cities are smaller compared to other European cities. But first of all, you get the public transport right. You make sure that you have enough public transport alternatives. You make
Should
sure
it be free? Like in Luxembourg, they celebrated 3 years this week.
We're having that debate. But on a personal level, I think it's best to use the resources wisely to increase your capacity, the number of vehicles you have, the number of transport types, the people employed to drive and to use that system. At the same time, reducing the fares. But starting with free fares as your starting point is not the right place to start. You make sure that there is a viable public transport system that people can use in the first instance.
Well, we've been taking a look at some cities across Europe that are trailblazing when it comes to putting the environment and the health of their inhabitants first. You can take a look there at your screens. This is according to Expat Explore: Copenhagen, Lisbon, Stockholm, Ljubljana, Oslo and Tallinn. They're the top 6 eco-friendly cities in Europe. A reaction to that, Kata?
It's interesting. I was expecting Vienna. Vienna first.
I've seen Vienna. In fairness to Vienna, they've popped up on a lot of rankings as well, right on top.
Because what I do, because they are innovators. Because we have some cities who are innovators because like they have the same political leadership for a long time, so they actually can have not just strategies but make it become reality and sharing experiences. So my table is filled with Vienna strategies, and we try to see what worked for them, because they're very similar cities.
But it must be difficult, no, to copy and paste, because as you say, cities are so different.
That's right.
You don't copy paste, but but when you have similar structures, we have the same river, we have the same size of population. It's like 2 hours drive away, same history. So you don't copy paste. But if you have like similar cities with similar history, cultural similarities, you can use a lot that already worked. And
I'm sure there was a lot of tip sharing this week when you were in Brussels among all those other mayors.
Let me tell you another unhappy situation from another unhappy city in terms of cars. We, as a city, we had before 89, when was the Romanian Revolution, 50,000 cars in my city. Now we have 200,000 cars with the same city, with the same geographical condition, so we need to change the mindset. Definitely, that's the way to move to a very reliable public transport, as you said, to have dedicated bus lines, quality of the public transport, and also other alternatives of transportation. That is not easy. And again, leadership. If you do not provide leadership, you are not going to make the change. And you have to assume, as I said at the beginning, unpopular decisions.
Well, we were looking there at that ranking, and Tallinn was number 6 in Estonia. And they're also the green capital this year, the European green capital. And we wanted to ask them how they got there. We can take a listen now to Krista Campos from the city of Tallinn.
We have been working for this for years. Biodiversity is one of our priorities, urban greenery. For us, it is also very important environmental education. We have, for example, 29 learning and community gardens in the city of Tallinn. Every community has its own small community garden where they can grow their food, and I think it is also important when it comes to health, when it comes to integration, creating better connections between the people from different nationalities.
Krista Campos there from the city of Tallinn. Not a bad idea there, Dan Boyle. Gardens.
I think Estonia is to be lauded with a lot of its initiatives. But the idea of using space and having individual community, collective involvement in how we use green space in particular is something that we don't promote enough. There's always been an expectation that someone else will plant the trees, someone else will tend to the parks, and I think we have to have this sense of community ownership, community involvement if we are to go anywhere towards meeting our targets in terms of climate change.
And do you see that from the people that they want to like be the solution to, or not so much?
It changes, maybe not too fast enough. So this is why I think local politicians always this is why it's important to have local politicians on board, because there are some countries who are already on this green track going faster and faster. But if you don't bring your citizens with you, if you want to go too fast, then there will be one time they say they check out. Because of course, everybody loves the concept of green. But a lot of times the reality of green is different, more difficult, even when it comes to like trees and biodiversity, when we talk about not cutting the grass and having more flowers, having more bees in the city. Trees have leaves, and that always brings some conflicts, and insects and birds. You need time, but I think the biggest topic we didn't talk about when we talk about greening, it's the energy part and the building parts. So yes, transport,
that's all part of the Fit for 55.
Transport is about very much about air pollution now, but energy is about the bills.
Briefly,
exactly, it's the case. A green city is not just a city which plants trees and have parks. It's a broader concept, and you have to have a broad vision in order to integrate recycling, waste management, public transportation, energy efficiency. That's a green city in the end. And I use an example. You always use examples to the people in order to attract on your side. For the example I mentioned about the air pollution, you can avoid it. You cannot avoid air pollution. You can quit smoking. For example, the air pollution is responsible for more than 130 deaths, extra deaths in the European Union every year at 100,000 people. So 130 deaths extra at 1,000 people in European Union due to air pollution.
Reported on those. That's the World Health Organization.
That's happening today, tomorrow, and every year. So if you do not reverse the trend, our health is going to be in danger. And of course, the quality of life. And in the end, for jobs, you are going to invest in a city where you will see quality of life and less pollution.
We're nearly out of time, but I just have one quick question for you all, because this weekend Paris was holding a referendum on whether or not to ban electric scooters. You can keep an eye on our website for the outcome of that website. But what's your take on them, very briefly?
We need to introduce legislation in Ireland, but I think as many modes of transport are available, the better, but they have to be properly regulated. There have to be speed controls. There have to be proper areas of the roadway that can be used.
We are the very first city in Romania to provide special rules. And if you provide it and you respect it, you can have both. If you do not respect the rules, it would be a problem.
I'm a user, so I believe in regulation, but I love these scooters and I see my generation really likes it.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you so much for that, and thank you for watching. Stay with us though, because after the break we'll be looking at how we can fund this green future. See you soon here on Euronews and Euronews.com. Welcome back to Brussels, my love, with me, Maeve McMahon. We're taking a look at how cities and regions across the continent are going green, putting the climate and the health of people first. But nothing, of course, is possible without money. So let's take a look now at how much money is on the table, according to the European Union. 1.8 trillion for the next couple of years that, according to the Council, will help transform the European Union by supporting the European Green Deal and the digital transformation. So that sounds great. On paper, it sounds like a lot of money. It's obviously divided into a lot of different sections. But I think 30% of that money should be focused on climate change and reaching those goals. So my question to you all is, will you get a sniff of that money?
We really hope so. We have this mission. What's happening is that cohesion money is for cohesion. So it means that those areas which are not so developed as other European regions, they should catch up. So like a big city as Budapest, which is a developed city, a capital city, is not entitled to cohesion funds. But still, it covers 1/5 of the population. If I look at the transport, it's 1/3 of the population that we cover. So we are looking with other big cities, with Prague, with Warsaw, with Bratislava. We have this coalition of cities to look for direct funds, especially for the green transition. This is why we have this mission of cities to become climate neutral earlier and to change the rules to have direct access to funds for this transition.
I do support what my colleague said. First, in the end, all the pollution is local. It's happening at a local level. If you talk about poverty, if you talk congestion, if you're talking about all the problems that happens at a local level, for that we need money. We need local, national and European money. And a solution is to have a direct allocation of money to the cities. Otherwise, you lose the money through bureaucracy sometimes. Of course, you need national plans. You have to respect national policies and solutions and visions, but very direct money. Second, cohesion and synergy of funds. This word synergy, which in Brussels it means a lot, and people do not understand. Synergy means let me be able to bring money from different sources to solve a problem. So if I want to rebuild a school, I do not have to apply to several funds. Let me use funds for renovation, let me use for solar panels, deep renovations, because you cannot renovate a school just on one chapter. You need an integrated rehabilitation of the school. Let's use the synergy capacity to bring funds for many sources and implement it. Because in the end, that is making the difference in Europe. People seeing the results, and our democracy is strong on that.
Yeah, that's very true. And city government is best placed to bring about the solutions in a more immediate way. The more levels of government that are above city government, in which cases have to be made to distribute funding, the more that funding gets diluted and the weaker its effect will be at the end. So having money going directly to city government is going to have that best effect. And I think we also have to make an argument that many of our social issues are also addressed through the same mechanism. For instance, we had a conversation earlier about the built infrastructure, and the best green building is already built. So vacant and derelict properties as a means of solving the housing crisis that exists in many of our cities is also a green solution. And this is why the funding needs to be done in a more integrated and direct way.
And now it's not. I mean, and obviously you have to go through your national government and be on best relations with them in order to get a look in on those national plans and have yourself heard.
Well, and the Hungarian government is in war with the European government, so it makes it much harder for Budapest. We didn't receive anything from the Recovery and Resiliency Facility, although that would be the best tool that we could use as a city. Also, it's the same. We all have all the plans for this mission to become climate neutral earlier. We would use European Investment Bank money, all the sources, but it's now blocked, so it makes it hard. We have this Green Deal, European Green Deal, and what we do in the Committee of the Regions, we break it down. We call it the Green Deal going local, and this is the way we try and show implementation. So what's happening at the local level, and we want channeling funds for this Green Deal.
Sounds like you're spending a lot of time lobbying and trying to have your voice heard and wasting a lot of your time.
That's part of the job in the end, sometimes lobbying. But in Romania, for the very first time, the Romanian government took the decision to decentralize the application of European funds, the using of European funds, not one engine in Bucharest, the capital, but 8 regional engines. I think this is the solution, decentralizing, because this week in Brussels, European Commission launched the European Index of Regional Competitiveness and showed that in many countries of the European Union, 2/3 is just the capital and nothing else. You need to have a balanced development across Europe and across different regions of your country in order to be competitive and to offer quality of life for all the citizens from different parts of Europe.
And are you on good terms with your national governments? Are you getting a look in?
So far, the government consulted us on national recovery plans and the implementation phase of the new program. Now, let's see what is happening on the implementation phase, because the consultation process took place. So far, so good. But let's see what is moving on.
And over in Cork, like looking at those figures, I mean, have you any specific projects that you would like to implement?
Well, we too are part of the 100 European cities that are seeking to go carbon neutral earlier, but to have that more than an aspiration, it means working together, and it means trying to identify resources and using those resources as quickly as possible. In Ireland, we suffer the same as other countries. Dublin, our capital, is 1/3 of the population of the country. Cork, as the second city, is 5 times smaller than it. And if we don't get that balance right, it'll be very difficult to get the other decisions in relation to how we use resources properly or otherwise. And it's a problem throughout Europe. But what I'm encouraged by with the Committee of the Regions and similar bodies and the Covenant of Mayors is the fact that we are prepared to acknowledge these problems and work together towards solving them.
So no offense to the capital, of course, capital city like Budapest. So we do not want just the capital to thrive and the other to survive, if I may say. We need a balanced development all over Europe, and I think this is the cohesion policy which is doing in Europe. That's this glue which is keeping our Europe together, and is taking care that in every corner of our Europe to have the European way of life and the quality of life for all Europeans. And that, I think, should be a political principle of our union, to have a cohesion policy after 2027.
So this is why we say it's important to have strong local levels, because it will bring in much more mayors with ambition. It will bring competition, which means much more ambition, because a lot of times if you have only this top-down, that the government will tell you that you have to do this and this, then you can tell, it's impossible. But if you have mayor who say, I will do it, I will show you that this is possible, then the others will follow. And
I'm going to have to stop you there, Kat. I'm afraid we've run out of time. But thank you so much for those very insightful points of view, and thank you for watching. See you soon here on Euronews. Welcome back to Brussels, my love, with me, Maeve McMahon, where we're taking a look back at some of the stories making news here in Europe this week. Well, this week marked over 400 days since the Russian invasion of Ukraine began. And with it, of course, saw a huge influx of Ukrainian refugees into Europe, something we've reported on extensively here on Euronews. But the reason we're talking about it today is because a majority of them fled to cities right here in Europe. So we can take a look at the figures there on your screen. According to UNHCR, Poland is currently hosting the most, over 1.5 million, followed by Germany at over 1 million, and then Czech Republic at 500,000. So I'd just like to ask you how you've managed this. How many Ukrainian refugees have you got in Cluj, for example?
In a way or another, we had 6,000 Ukrainian refugees. Most of them left for other countries. Some of them are still in the city, and we provided an integrated solution for them, starting from housing, healthcare, education, and security. And I'm so impressed about the capacity of the citizens of Europe to show their solidarity and their capacity to suffer in order to defend our liberty, to defend our values.
It's a success story in your city.
It's a success story in the end, because it's a tragedy what is happening in Ukraine. But for Europe, it's a sign that we are definitely stronger than before, united than before, and it's a strong argument that the peace is going to be on our continent, because this is a war of the future and a war of the past. War of the future, because if you do not stop this war, will be another war in Europe. And we have to defend our values, we have to defend our democracy, to support Ukraine in order to have peace on our continent.
Okay, and just back to the refugees, you've 5,000
in city and county, maybe divided evenly between the main city and
how are they getting on? Are they settled in?
Well, excellent people, and I think they're finding the experience well. Nationally, we're starting to struggle in terms of accommodation. The goodwill amongst the Irish people is very strong, and there's quite a lot of support for Ukraine and its experience and the need to overcome the difficulties.
But that support is starting to wane?
I wouldn't say it's waning. I think this is purely administrative. We're struggling to find additional accommodation spaces that we can't find immediately, and I think there are going to be the challenges over the immediate year as the war continues. But hopefully the solidarity will continue and the support will continue.
This is a marathon of support, not just a sprint.
Yeah.
What about yourself over in Budapest? What has the situation been like?
I think it was really amazing what the solidarity our citizens showed. So we had a lot of people arriving in the first days after the war, the first weeks after the war. But in Budapest, with Hungary, it's a special situation. We have a lot of Hungarians living in Ukraine. And they have Hungarian passports, so they are not considered to be refugees. They are Hungarians. And we received a lot of them, and a lot still live in Hungary, but mostly in the border area. What we've seen in Budapest, a lot of people transiting. So it's maybe an easier task to organize transit and having families to host other families for 1 day, 1 week. But this was the majority. So most of the people who came, they already left.
They already left. But I believe in Brussels this week you were also discussing this alliance of mayors and the support for Ukraine towards these refugees, because I guess in your case a lot of people will stay and they're Cork citizens now.
Yes, and I suppose one of the sadder aspects is that we even have groups of refugees who are experiencing this for the second time. I've met several people who were refugees from Donetsk in 2014, and it's a situation we have a collective responsibility to make sure, first of all, stops, never occurs again, and offers whatever support we can to the people who find themselves in this situation.
And
supporting Ukraine is not an act of charity. They are dying for our values in the same time, of course, defending their country, their nationality, but we have to understand what they are doing and we have to support as long as it takes. So they are welcome. I know that it's not easy, but we are ready to support as long as it is necessary, and definitely we are going to do it for the future as long as it takes.
Okay.
And this was the time when we have these sister cities. So a lot of our cities have sister cities in Ukraine, and this is the youth now. We feel that they could directly connect and say, I need this, this, and that. Can you help?
Okay, thank you so much. Very interesting insights there from Kata Tutto, Deputy Mayor of Budapest, Dan Boyle, and also yourself, Emil Bock. Thank you so much for being with us, and thank you for watching. See you soon here on Euronews.